a big deal. So some other helpful links for this class. So one of them is this piece of software called Graphmatica. So what Graphmatica looks like is it looks like this. And basically all it is, it's a fancy graphing piece of software. So you can type in a function and it'll output the graph for it really quickly. It's nice if you're electing to do homework in OneNote and you need to get a graph in there. It's easy to copy and paste the image from this and put it into OneNote. It makes things nice. It's completely optional. You don't need to do this for class. If you want to, if you think it's going to make your life easier, you're more than welcome to use it though. Okay? And it's free. So that's always a good bonus. The second thing is called the Wabbit EMU. So this is an emulator. So it basically just mimics an object. In this case, what it's doing is it's emulating your graphing calculator, or I shouldn't say yours, but a graphing calculator. So this is what it looks like. So it just looks like your TI-84 graphing calculator, and it functions exactly the same way. You just use your mouse to click the buttons as you would your finger, and all the functionality is exactly the same. And again, that's free also. It's nice that if you are somebody that forgets your calculator at school, but you remember your tablet, here you go, you got a calculator that you can use. Or if you share calculators with your sibling or something and you guys are fighting over the calculator, this is a nice option to kind of alleviate that kind of conflict. And it's free. The only issue is, can you download those things and install them on your computer yourself? I think you need IT approval to get to download or install these programs, I think is what we found out earlier today. I didn't realize that when I put this in here, but I think you have to go through them. But I don't see any reason why, if you ask Mrs. McCaskey, she wouldn't approve these things. And then the next thing is we're going to set up our shared OneNote notebook. So you see at the bottom of the page, go ahead and click that link. And this is going to either prompt you to open Microsoft Teams. My app for Microsoft Teams is not working on my computer. You can hit open Microsoft Teams though. Most of you, that should work just fine. I have to go through the web though, because for whatever reason it was working this morning and then it stopped working on me later this afternoon, which was a fun thing to find out like halfway through trying to do this. So as you do that, you're probably going to be prompted to join my Microsoft team, right? Is that happening as you guys as it's loading in? Go ahead and submit your request. Once I have everybody's request in, I'll approve them all at once. It seems dumb not to just do them one at a time as they come in, but it creates a real hassle on my end if I try to do it that way. So I'm just going to wait until I have, the 24 requests sitting here, and then I will approve them all at once. So I'm seeing them starting to come through already. So I think there's 14 sitting there. Now there's 16. So keep them coming. Anybody that's kind of working on doing this. I think there's 23 of us, so I should have 23 requests eventually. So we're at 18. There's still, 19 now. There's still 4 people that are working on this, and that's fine. If you're still kind of getting things going, just take your time. We'll wait for you. Again, it's much, much easier on me. For whatever reason, Teams doesn't like to update these requests after you've started processing requests. So I found this out the hard way earlier today, that as I was trying to accept them as they came in, it made a huge mess and it took way longer than it should have if I just waited for them all to come in. So I think there's 3 more people still working on this, and that's okay. Again, take your time. I'll wait for y'all. So I'm looking at my roster, and it says I have, one person plus 19, so that's 20 people. I should have 23 on my roster, so up to 21 now. I think there's 2 more of you guys still kind of working on things, and I know that computers go slow or whatever, and the internet or your tablet might have died halfway through and you had to move to a new location after it shut down, and that's okay. Like, it happens. It's been a long day. You probably used your tablet for every one of your classes so far, so not surprising that we're having some battery issues. So we'll just kind of wait on that, but it's no big deal. Nobody minds waiting. It's not the end of the world. So who's tired already? I could fall asleep right now if I close my eyes. I am pooped. Pooped. So waiting on 2 more. Do we know who we are? Oh, I should say 1 more. Is there somebody that knows that they're still haven't got this done yet? Or do I need to try to hunt through and figure this out? Okay, well, I'm going to call names of people who I have a request from. If you don't hear your name called, you're the person that I don't have a request yet from. And then we'll deal with you separately and get that figured out, okay? So we have Julia, Isabella, Bridget, Amanda, Megan, Jacob, Caroline, Ashley, Christopher, Brooke, Pedro, Taylor, Lucas, Elizabeth, Leah. Did I miss?
I sent it. It said sent.
Oh, you know what? This hasn't. I missed a whole bunch of people because I didn't have the most up-to-date one probably clicked here. All right. Well, you know what? It's not gonna do this because it's an idiotic program. Okay. We'll try that. That's maybe more of them, right? So where did we leave off? They wouldn't have changed the order. They just would have queued them in at the end, it looks like, right? Or did they change the order? Now we'll start over again. So Julia, Isabella, Bridget, Amanda, Megan, Jacob, Caroline, Ashley, Christopher, Brooke, Pedro, Taylor, Lucas, Elizabeth, Leah, Daniel, Delaney, Tess, Sophia, Robert or Bobby, Josh, and Grace. Did anybody not get called? And what's your name? Anna. Did you just send it?
No.
You sent it a while ago, huh? All right, well, I'm going to hit accept all, and we'll see if it picks you up and it's just not showing, and if it doesn't, we'll add you in manually. I had to do that with somebody else earlier where it just, for whatever reason, like they sent their request and I just wasn't getting it for some reason. It was very weird. So if you have the dialog box still open, go ahead and close that. And ideally speaking, you should be at a page that looks like this then. I just saw something happen there, Josh. So you exited the thing and now are having to rejoin. Okay. So let's look at the 22. So we're still one person short. I don't know if it's Josh that left permanently or temporarily, or if it's, what was your name again? Anna. So Josh, I still see you on the list. Anna, I didn't see you. So close the pop-up window that just came up. You did that. Try just refreshing. Okay. Ludwig, right, was your name, Anna? Okay. That's you. And I'm just going to add you manually.
Oh, I refreshed it.
You're good now?
No, it did not.
It did not. Okay, let me look at where you're at. Anna, let me know if that took care of it. Yes, close that. Yeah.
And then like I would go somewhere else. And then
And it's Jessica Kennedy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. So that pushed you through. All right. So is anybody still fighting with this to get set? Josh, you are. All right, next up. So up here where it says class notebook, go ahead and click that. So up at the top where it says class notebook, right where my pointer is, go ahead and click that. And it's going to take a minute to populate the notebook, especially because we're doing it all at once. So it'll take a minute here to come up, but eventually all this other stuff should kind of fill in for you. And what we're going to do next is where it says open in browser. You're going to click that and instead choose open in app. And now some of you it'll prompt with this message. Some of you it might say what program do you want me to open with? If you get this message, just hit open OneNote. If you get the choice, you want to pick the big version of OneNote, which I think is the Windows 10 OneNote is what it's called or whatever. But after that, it'll open OneNote. It'll probably give you a warning, like that an external program is trying to access an app or something. Just hit yes if you get a warning, and that should open OneNote for you. And I'm going to walk by, and if you're having problems, we'll take a look at what's going on, okay? But you should end up with OneNote kind of looking like this when you're all set it up. Hopefully this is not the first time you've done this, right? Some of us. I think it's not
It's moderate stress. I already took out So do you think it's your
All right. It looks like everybody was successful. So I just want to run through a little bit of the features here that we have. So you can change in between your shared notebooks with this little drop down. So the green notebook is like your personal one, and then your shared notebooks would be listed underneath it. So that's how you move in between them. Inside of your shared notebook, you're going to have, I think, 3 tabs here. So there's the collaboration space. That's a place where if you put anything in there, anyone in the class can see that. So the students and the teacher, everybody can see what's in there. That's not where we're going to do most of our stuff. There's a content library. If you click on that, you'll notice that I've already put in the chapter 1 stuff into the content library. So the lessons and the problems and the odd solutions I've already put in there. So the content library you guys can view, you guys can copy or download from, but you can't edit anything in here. I'm the only one with edit rights to the content library. But this is where I'll put in, like, you know, the book pages or the notes from the class or things like that, is I'll just put them into the content library. To get back out of one of these tabs, you use this little arrow right next to the drop down. You guys see that? That'll walk you back up a step. And then I have teacher only. You guys will probably, it'll say your name there. Is that right? So go ahead and do that. Click where your name is. Let me do this real quick. There we go. Okay. So like now all your names have kind of popped up on mine. So for example, if I went and clicked on Amanda's, you'll see at the top of hers it says homework. So this is where you guys are going to turn in your homework assignments for this class. You're going to use this shared OneNote file under homework. So each homework assignment, you'd make a separate page. So like you do homework 1 here, and then the next, you just hit new add page and you do homework 2, etc., etc., etc. Is everybody okay with that idea? So you can use your stylus and write in OneNote. You can do your homework that way. That's fine. If you want to write it on a separate sheet of paper and then take a picture of it and put the picture into OneNote, that's fine too. Some things to be cautious about if you choose to do it that way, which is again fine. 1, should you use your cell phone camera or the tablet camera to take the picture? Cell phone camera is much better camera than the camera on the tablet. I probably won't be able to read your writing with the cell phone camera. So without the cell phone camera. So please use your cell phone camera. Now, how many of you have taken a picture with your cell phone and gone and looked at the file and had the direction of the picture goofy? Like turned on the side or upside down or something? That happens, right? If you've ever tried to do that, it happens kind of a lot. So one thing that we can do is, so let's say that I wanted to, say like this was a picture file. You can get into OneNote by just actually taking the icon, dragging it into OneNote and letting go, and then choosing the insert printout. And it'll literally just put whatever that file is visually into OneNote. So like stuff opens so it can access that file or whatever, but it'll drop it there right into OneNote. And then if you right click on these, now this is a PDF file, so it doesn't have this option, but if it's a image like you took from a camera, whether it's a JPEG or PNC or whatever, there'll be if you right click, there'll be an option called rotate. And there's a couple of different options for rotate, whether you want to go to the right or to the left, 90 degrees. So if you have something that's like on its side, you just need to rotate it until it's facing right side up. So just a couple of mouse clicks is all it takes. Does that make sense to everybody? Again, if you're having trouble with that, come talk to me, and it's easy to do. Once I show you, it'll be no problem. So Amanda, I'm gonna actually delete this out of here, this extra thing I made in yours because I was using it as an example. And I'm gonna go back to the content library here real quick, and I'm gonna make a new page, and I'm just gonna call this like testing or something. And I'm just gonna drag in some PDF file, let's say this one that's the Notre Dame schedule. Now I want you guys to all click on the content library and see if you can see this extra page right now. Can you see it? Is it there? It's not. Why not? So what needs to happen is my computer needs to send the information for this page up to the cloud, and then you have to get that information back down from the cloud onto your computer, right? That's what needs to happen. So the way we can do that, eventually if we just left these open, it would happen. Like the computer will sync every, I don't know how long it takes, but it automatically syncs like every 20 minutes or something. But if you go to the drop down here and you right click anywhere in here, it doesn't matter, and you choose this notebook sync status command, it'll open this little pop-up, and you can just pick sync all. Now you have to wait for me to sync because my file has to get up to the cloud before you can sync and get that file back down to your computer. But you'll notice here that we're 4th hour and we're almost done syncing. Or I'm almost done syncing. The last little bit always takes as long as the whole thing did in its entirety, because that's the way computers lie to you. But it's done now. So if you go and sync your OneNote, that extra page that you couldn't see before will be there now. So if you go to your collaboration space, you will see, the wrong notebook. You will see that testing file, or you should see that testing file now. Did that work for you guys? So what is this telling you about? What other lesson do we need to take away on this? Before you think you're finished submitting your homework on OneNote, what do you need to make sure you do? You have to make sure you sync, right? Because if you just, especially if you're putting images in, like the image takes a while to get, that's a lot of information to go up to the cloud. If you just drop in the images real quick and then close OneNote, I'm not going to see them. Okay, so you have to make sure that when you're done, you hit that sync and let it sync, or you can just leave OneNote open for like an hour. It eventually will probably take care of itself. But I think the easier thing to do is just hit that sync button when you're done, whether you're going to close OneNote or not. It just takes a couple of seconds or whatever, and it can run in the background. You don't even have to really pay attention to it. Is everybody cool with that idea? Okay. So that's that as far as the OneNote goes. I'm going to delete this extra thing from the content library because it was just to kind of illustrate to you like what this syncing does and why it's important, right? So that's, hopefully we got that idea. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to go and open our syllabus for this course. And we'll talk a little bit about the syllabus here. And I'm not going to go through all of these sections on the syllabus really in detail because it's a lot of crap you probably heard 3 times already today, and I don't want to belabor some of it. I'm just going to focus on the stuff that's really kind of specific and important to this course. So materials for this course. We have our, I called it an online text. It's really not online though because they're just PDFs. So you can get them and keep them on your computer. It's not, whatever. Should have probably some kind of notebook or folder with paper in it. What I like to do, I mean, I take college math classes right now while I'm working on some degrees. But I like to use like the little composition notebook. The ones I buy are the ones with the graph paper built into them. I like it because all the pages are bound, so they can't get out of order. They don't fall out like the perforated notebook pages eventually start falling out, or even the spiral notebook pages get loose and kind of start escaping on me every once in a while. But I like to use this. You can use whatever you like. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just telling you the thing that I like to use. But you guys, I'm not going to micromanage how you keep your notebook. You know, like you've done this enough time, you know what's going to work for you. But then you need like pencils and pens and notebook paper and blah, blah, blah. You do need a graphing calculator for this course, but you needed one for your last math course also. The graphing calculator you had for Algebra 3-4 can be the same graphing calculator you're using now for this course. The typical recommendation is it should be a TI-83 or better. If you're not sure if what you have is okay, you can show it to me. This is a TI-84 that I'm holding here. They typically run between $100 and $150, depending. Maybe you can get it a little cheaper if you catch a sale. But you don't need to buy the most expensive graphing calculator you can find. You don't need like the TI Inspire CX edition or something. Like the TI-84 is fine. It does everything you need it to do. And you can use it on the ACT or SAT if you choose to take one. I guess it's no longer maybe required anymore, but who knows. And then also, I am going to require that you guys have a functioning stylus for your tablet. Now, you guys were all issued a stylus with your tablet some years ago. Some of you, I can see, still have them as they're already on your tablet cases. That's wonderful. If you have misplaced it or it's run out of batteries or somebody borrowed it and never returned it, we do need to make sure that if it's not working, that you get a new battery so that it's working. That's probably the only issue. You just turn it to the side and the battery will fall right out for you, and you can figure out what size it is and just probably buy it on Amazon. It probably costs like 35 cents or something. But you do need to have a functioning stylus. If you don't have the stylus, you could buy the replacement one through Microsoft. I don't know how much it costs, but it's probably something absurd like $100. Or really all you need is something that's compatible with the Surface Pro. So if you have anything that'll write on the Surface Pro, that's fine. It doesn't have to be the stylus that came with it. We just have to be able to use, be able to write in OneNote with it is what we're going to need to be able to do with it. And I want you to have the stylus because some of the things that we're going to write in OneNote would be timed, and I don't think you'd have enough time to like mouse in the symbols. Like you just can't make the symbols fast enough for it to really be practical. So you do need a functioning stylus. Is everybody okay with that idea? So anything that'll write in OneNote on your tablet is fine. It does not have to be the Microsoft brand stylus that your computer came with. Anything that works is fine. Yada, yada, yada. So the types of assignments we have for this course, we have test, homework, quizzes, homeworks, and a semester exam. We'll talk more about each one of those things here in a second. So the test or the final grades are the ones, like just the standard final grades from the grade book or from the handbook. One thing I'd like to point out, when I have the computer calculate your final grade, I have it round to the nearest whole number, not the nearest tenth, and then I round again. And this sometimes kids get confused on this because might have like their net classroom, they have rounded to the 10th, and it says like 87.5, and I end up calling that an 87 on my end. Why would that have happened? What if their actual grade was 87.46326? When you round to one decimal place, that becomes 87.5. But if you round to the whole number, it becomes 87, right? 87.46. You guys see that? So on occasion that has happened. I just want to point that out, that like if you're like, whoa, I had, like 87.5, that should round to the B plus, and I rounded it to the B at 87.0. That's what happened. Okay, so that's the way I have things set up. I just round it to the whole number, and the computer takes care of all the rounding for me with the grade boundaries like that. I don't round it to the 10th and then round again up or down. I take the whole raw score, and then I round with the computer does the rounding. So that's happened before in the past, and it took me a minute to figure out like what the heck was happening, but eventually like sorted that out. But I figure I mention it every year because it's happened once or twice before. To get the fancy honor certificate at the awards convocation, you need to do 93 or better for both semesters. The homework assignments. So I'll assign homework most days. The due date for that week's homework assignment is Sunday at midnight. So the assignments from like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all have the same due date. It's all Sunday at midnight. So what I'd expect you to do is in your OneNote, under the homework tab, is I'd see those 3 assignments in there. It's nice that we're just doing this once per week, right? Because if you have a homework assignment that you're like, boy, I didn't know what to do with this, you can come in to the next class and we can talk about the homework assignment. You can ask some questions. So if there are things you didn't know how to do, or things that you found out you did wrong, you can complete them or you can fix those things. If you had a particularly hectic couple of days and maybe you didn't get your math homework quite finished, that's okay. You have till Sunday at midnight to kind of finish things up. It's not going to be a big rush every night to make sure you've done all of it all the time. Does that make sense, guys? Does that feel helpful to have a little bit more flexibility with that, Delaney? So on these daily homework assignments, what I'm looking for is quality of work and completeness. So what I mean by quality of work is that like there's obvious working shown and they make sense. And then completeness, I'm just checking to see that like we've attempted most of the work. We're not looking at right and wrong on the daily homework assignments. But again, if you find out like, yo, I did this like way wrong the next day when we come back and talk about the homework, I'd encourage you to go back and fix things. Like that's all. It's a good idea because clearly you haven't really learned how to do it correctly yet. But I'm not going to be like per se marking you down unless it's like there's no work shown in like a list of answers, right? Or a bunch of stuff is missing, like it's not done. The second, okay, so that's the homework. Does everybody feel okay on that? Okay. And again, we'll make sure that you're syncing as you do that. I would, if I were me, I would put them in OneNote as I finish them, right? Or I would do the work in OneNote. And you can make as many changes as you want, like, add stuff, take stuff out, rearrange, edit things as much as you want up until Sunday at midnight when like the due date closes. And through OneNote, I can see when you're making changes into these pages so I can tell if you've done anything or not, or what you've done, or when you did it. But you have the freedom to kind of do that as much as you'd like in between. So I wouldn't wait until Sunday to get it all in there. I would put it in there as you're doing it. That way, if you forget, you still have some stuff on time and it's not all late, right? Because that'll happen probably to somebody at some point where it's just like, oh no, I forgot. Yeah. The homework quizzes, that's the next thing we'll talk about. So the homework quizzes are unannounced, and they're going to be over homework problems that we've already assigned on homeworks that we've already had a chance to talk about in class. So it's going to be things from like 2 or 3 lessons ago. I'm going to give you, 1, 2, maybe 3 problems, give you 15 minutes or so to do them, and then I'll grade these things, and here correctness will matter. But I'm not going to grade it like, I gave you 3 out of 5 for this problem and 2 out of 5 for that one and blah, blah, blah. Every homework quiz is going to be out of 10 points, and I'm going to look at, is this like A work? Is this B work? Is this C work? So like, if you knew what you're doing and you made like a couple of silly mistakes, it could still be A work. It could still be a 9, right? Or even depending on how complex the problem, maybe even a 10 still, right? If you made, well, that was kind of a major mistake or like more than a minor mistake, maybe that's B work where you have 1 or 2 of those. If it's like, ooh, boy, that was pretty, you had like the right idea at the start and then you really went off the rails, maybe that's C work. Maybe that's a 7. Notice that here you can get like a 7 or 8 and get everything wrong. You know what I mean? Like the idea here is because these things are unannounced and you're not sure exactly when to prepare or what you should be preparing for, I'm going to be kind of flexible with what we're considering like right and wrong and really kind of look at it holistically. Does that seem fair given the circumstances? So it's going to be very difficult to get like I don't know that last year I gave anybody less than a 6 at any point in an honors class because everybody had at least that much of an idea of what the heck they were doing for at least one of the problems that I asked on a homework quiz. So it's hard to get much worse than like 6s and 7s. So there's not the basement of that score is pretty high. Like it's hard to get like a 2 or a 3. Like you basically would have to turn in a blank sheet of paper. But maybe getting all the way to the 10, you really have to know what's going on. But those scores in between, you can make some mistakes in there and still do quite well. Does that make sense? Especially with that small number of problems, right? Like if you do one problem perfectly and kind of butcher the other one, it still gives me the ability to give you like an 8 on it, even though you really only did half of the stuff. You know what I mean? Okay. And hopefully that seems reasonable. The tests, so typically We'll have one test at the end of the chapter. I give partial credit on virtually all test questions. That partial credit will be on the basis of the work shown. So if you have a problem and your work doesn't make sense, or it's not really clear, or you didn't really include very much, it's hard for me to assign a lot of partial credit to that. What I like to describe, what I'm looking for is demonstration of understanding. So what I want is to understand like how you're going from one step to the next step to the next step. And if you're making like minor mistakes along the way, that's easy for me to see. It's like, okay, they understood the process, like clearly. They copied down a 3 instead of a 4, and then that 6 became a 0. You know, like if it's that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, like I'm going to give you, you know, the vast majority of the points here and just move on about our day because you clearly knew what you're doing. As opposed to somebody that has the wrong answer and I can't figure out like what the heck they were doing to go from one place to the other. That's going to get much less credit, right? So I encourage you on the homework to really kind of practice, you know, documenting what you're doing and demonstrating that understanding. It'll make it that much easier come test time to deal with that. Does that sound fair to you guys? Seem reasonable? Okay. So again, you can get lots of things wrong, like wrong answers, and still do very well if like the reason you're getting the wrong answers is because you're being kind of careless or something. Like you know. If you are somebody that gets extra test time, that's fine. I just need to know in advance, and I ask that the testing is done all in one setting, so you make an arrangement with counseling to do it at some alternate time and location to where you can have, you know, the time window that you need to complete that. I just need to know in advance. Dress code, you guys know what the dress code is and are promising to be in it and wear your masks the appropriate way. I saw you guys fill out the mask contract earlier today in community time. So, and then the computers, you guys all signed the computer policy. I'm going to trust that you guys are using them appropriately, and if not, we'll deal with that when it becomes obvious that we're not. But we're going to use the computer a lot in this class, whether it's doing homework assignments or, you know, like looking at the lecture notes or whatever. So I don't see any reason why you can't have them out. Academic honesty, you guys have heard this whole thing, don't cheat. Absences. So if you are absent and it's just a normal day where we're just doing a lesson, I'm going to record all the lessons. I'm going to put them all on PowerSchool. So you can just watch what we did that day and then do the assignment that corresponds to it, or look at the notes and do the homework that corresponds to it, and that's it. You don't need to come and ask me what to do. It should all be on PowerSchool by the end of the day. The only situation would be like this class where it's the last hour of the day. It takes a while to upload, so it might not get there, you know, for a while, because it takes like an hour to upload an hour, unfortunately. So it takes a minute, but it'll get there. Or you could live stream it with us, right? We showed you that earlier. If you missed a homework quiz, I'm going to have you guys make those up during community time. So if you missed a day where there's a homework quiz, just email me the community time day you want to come in, and I'll have your questions ready for you, and you'll do it and leave. You know, it's like 15-minute max. It's a great length for community time. If you miss a test day, I ask that within 1 week of your return to school, you've scheduled the makeup test. I don't need the test made up within 7 days. I need it scheduled. I understand if you've missed a lot of school that you have lots of things to make up, and, you know, it might take a minute to get around to it because there's, you know, you have 8 classes to deal with. As far as when to do these makeups, you can do study hall or testing room. I don't know that I have an hour before school or after school of availability to sit down and proctor a test, but if you can make other arrangements with another teacher, that's fine as well. But between my carpools and such, it's hard for me to find that much extra time to do that sort of thing when we have a testing room and study halls and whatnot. So, snow day. You guys know the deal with snow days. Check by 9 a.m. to see if there's any work. And the syllabus. So the plan is we're going to look at the first 6 chapters here in the first semester. First semester is going to be entirely trigonometry. Second semester we'll do finish up any last trigonometry topics we might have, and then we'll start some what we call the pre-calculus topics. So talking about a lot of vectors and matrix operations, and then some miscellaneous stuff in there. Oh, I didn't. Okay, well, whatever. This is fine. So on the syllabus, and I didn't really mean to leave this on the syllabus, but it's fine that it's there. But you'll also, if you go to Power School and look at where the syllabus is posted, you'll also see that there's a separate file that has this syllabus sign-in sheet. And the syllabus sign-in sheet is basically a form for you and your parents saying that, like, I've looked at the syllabus and I, am cool with the requirements here and I acknowledge what they are. That syllabus sign-in sheet is due back to me by Sunday at midnight. This is going to be one of the few times we're going to use the Power School Dropbox to submit these. So you can either print this off and sign it and like take a picture and then pump that into the Dropbox. Or what I would do is I would just open or drop that sign-in sheet into OneNote, sign it, fill it out in OneNote, and then upload that OneNote file. Or if you wanted to publish it to a PDF, that's fine too. And just send that to Power School. And then you don't have to use any paper at all, because I know that sometimes printing and printers are finicky, especially the home ones, right? So there's that. Everybody cool with that? And you saw that probably on the important dates on the calendar, right? Okay. Any questions about things to this point? Good. That should have been pretty easy. So let's start here. And this will be a very light start to the year. So I'm going to make a page in the content library for these notes today, and I'm just going to name the notes with the date, so it's easy to tell when this was from. And when we do any of these lessons in class, I'm going to write all the notes on OneNote, and I'm going to put them in, and they're going to be in the content library. So you don't really need to take physical notes. If you want to, and that helps you pay attention, and you like doing that, it helps you stay engaged, by all means, do that. That's perfectly fine. But if you'd rather sit and listen and hey, I know that I'm just going to, Mr. Kulik's notes are going to be there, that's fine with me. I'm just going to kind of sit and pay attention and, not worry about copying everything down. That's fine too. Okay? So I just wanted to put that out there that whatever works best for you, you can do, or you can experiment and be like, I thought I could get away with not taking any notes down, but I just can't pay attention if I'm not doing something. Maybe I should just start taking notes again. Experiment. Figure out what's going to work for you. Especially as juniors and seniors, that's an important thing to kind of figure out before you're off on your own in a couple years. Hopefully, on a physical college campus, trying to manage your life yourself, right? So I encourage you to kind of figure out how it's going to work well for you. Okay? Okay. So let's talk here a little bit about trigonometry. And as I'm writing these things, you guys, if you can't read something, if my penmanship is bad, or if it would help to turn off the lights, which it probably will, feel free to stand up and turn off the lights. If you see better if it's hard to see, you don't have to ask. Just stand up and do it, right? Like, no big deal. If the lights go out, I'll know why. Especially this time in the afternoon, it probably would be easier to do that, especially for the people in the back. But you don't have to ask permission or do it. Just stand up and do it. Or if I write something and you can't read my handwriting, just stop me and ask. Not a big deal. I know that at times my penmanship is less than fantastic, especially by the last hour of the day where you get a little tired and your penmanship really kind of goes to heck, right? You guys have been there and done that. If you can't read anything or you're not sure, let me know, okay? So this first semester is almost all built around this topic of trigonometry. What appears to be what do we think the root word meaning for trigonometry is? If you were to like break this word down and define it, what do you think? Yes, sir.
It's like the triangle and geometry, maybe.
So the trig part is definitely triangles. And the ometry is like study of. So like the basis for trigonometry is the triangle. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time first semester extending all of our definitions out past that. But that is kind of the fundamental basis of this study of trigonometry. And you guys spent some time in your geometry class, what was that, 2 years ago, kind of developing some of these ideas. So it's been a long time. So let's try to think back to our geometry class from 2 or more years ago and think about some of these important concepts related to triangles. So if you can think of something, you can raise your hand and wait to be called on, or you can just kind of shout them out. And if you're wrong, that's not a big deal. Or if you're not sure exactly what it's called, you can kind of talk through it and we'll find the right name for what it is you're thinking of. But just kind of think back. I know it's a long time and it's the end of the day and it's been a long first day and you probably don't have a lot of bandwidth left, but try a little bit here. There's an acronym that should be the first thing that comes to mind here. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. Do we remember this acronym? Do you remember what it stands for? Yeah, so it's giving you the definitions for sine, cosine, and tangent based on what? Side lengths of a right triangle. Very good. Yeah. So why is the right triangle part important? Well, let's say we have one right triangle here with acute angle that I'm going to call alpha. So that symbol I drew is the Greek letter for alpha. In geometry and trigonometry courses, typically we name a variable associated with an angle with those Greek letters. This is actually the lowercase, the lowercase Greek letter alpha. And let's say we have this other triangle, or right triangle, that also has acute angle alpha. What can we say about these two triangles? There's a relationship between them. Does anybody remember what that relationship is? You spent like a whole chapter in geometry talking about this relationship. Yes, sir. They're not congruent because all of the side lengths are not equal, right? But it's kind of like congruent. It's the weaker, I guess I would say, less specific than congruent. Similar, yes. So remember the symbol for similar was like this little tilde. So when two triangles are similar, all three angles measures have to be equal, or the three angles have to be congruent. And then what was the rule for the side lengths? They had to be proportional. So what that means is that, say, the opposite and hypotenuse for this triangle, if I write opposite over hypotenuse here, has to be the same as the opposite and hypotenuse for this triangle, because they're similar, right? Everybody's okay with that? That the ratio of side lengths of the corresponding side lengths must be equal. That's what the side lengths being proportional really means, right? Is everybody kind of ringing a bell? So what we did then is we then created a function that takes that angle measure and maps it onto that ratio of side lengths, right? And what did we call this particular function? Which one was opposite over hypotenuse? This was sine, right? Does that ring some bells here? Now that might have been a little bit more abstract than what you saw in geometry, but like that was the big point. That's why these trig functions work, is because they're guaranteed, because you're talking about a right triangle, that the two triangles are similar. Does anybody remember the similarity theorem that guarantees these two triangles are similar? This is a tough one. It's two letters. No? You weren't raising your hand? No. Yeah. I was asking, do we remember the similarity theorem that guarantees that these two triangles are similar? And the hint was it's just two letters. Or the abbreviation is two letters. Okay, that's okay. So the theorem was angle-angle. So we usually abbreviate that as just AA when you're in your geometry course, right, as the reason as why the two things were similar. Why don't you need the third angle? Why can't you say AAA? Is that wrong? It's not wrong. Is it redundant? Yeah. How do you know that the third angle also has to be congruent? Because the angles of any triangle must add up to 180. So if two of the three angles are the same, we know the third angle has to be the same. Very good. So that was another one that was an important geometry topic called the triangle sum theorem. That just says the interior angles of a triangle add to be 180 degrees, right? And that's one that we would have remembered, but maybe it wasn't so obvious that that was why we just can say angle, angle instead of angle, angle, angle. Good. Okay? So, what is the drawback to the way we've defined sine, cosine, and tangent in geometry? Well, what if I wanted to do sine of 100 degrees? Can I do that using the definition that we have from geometry? Can I have an obtuse angle inside of a right triangle? Definitely not. Why not? Because it's going to add to more than 180, right? So what the heck does sine of 100 mean? Well, we need a new definition, one that's not reliant on using a right triangle, right? So that's one of the things we're going to spend developing in the first part of this course, is extending these definitions for sine, cosine, and tangent so we can deal with an angle like 100 degrees. Well, what if I wanted to do something like sine of 214? That makes zero sense using a right triangle definition, right? Because you have something that can't even make a triangle at the 214 degree angle, right? What about this? The heck would negative angle measure mean? That doesn't make any sense if we're talking about right triangles. These are all things that we're going to, all issues with the current definition that we're working with that we need to fix. So the goal here at the start of this course is going to be, okay, we're going to start with this right triangle definition. And we're going to now extend this definition so that we can handle things like sine of 100, or sine of 214, or sine of negative 10 degrees, or even sine of like 10,080 degrees. Any number of degrees you want, we want to be able to calculate a value for sine for that. So that's what we're going to spend really the first part of this course doing, is taking this very narrow, very specific geometry-based definition and building that out. So basically that instead of taking an acute angle and mapping it to a ratio of side lengths, where this was our definition for our function for sine, we're going to take any real number and map it onto the interval between -1 and +1. That's really what we're going to end up doing. So we're going to take this really naive geometry definition and build it out into this very, very general algebraic definition. Right? Because our acute angle measures, are those real numbers? Yeah, right? They have to be. If I take a ratio of side lengths, in fact, this would actually be more specifically opposite over hypotenuse. What can I say about the fraction opposite and hypotenuse? What number does it have to be less than or equal to? 1. Why? What can you say about the hypotenuse? It's the largest side. So if I have the bigger number on the bottom of my fraction, what can I say about the decimal equivalency of that fraction? Has to be less than or equal to 1, right? Everybody agree with that? that's the biggest that fraction could be is 1 if the biggest number is on the bottom. Tie for first is 1, but and what's the smallest that fraction could be then? With the biggest number on the bottom. Approaching 0, right? If you have like 1 over the longest number the biggest number you could possibly write, that's basically just 0. You guys agree with that? So this ratio of side lengths is really some interval between 0 and 1. Notice that we've extended that now to include 1 and 0 and negative all the way down to -1. So again, our previous definition is included in this new one that we're going to construct, but we've built it out so that it's more general, includes more stuff than just this narrow case that we had before. Is that okay? Now, we've done no specifics about how we're going to do that, how we're going to change this definition, or how we're going to redefine things to make this possible. And I've done that intentionally because it's a lot of detail, and we don't have nearly enough time to get into that right now. I just wanted to paint a little bit of a picture, connecting some of the ideas that we have had before that happened a long time ago in a geometry course with what we're going to be looking to do here in the future. Okay? So hopefully I've got your interest piqued about like how we're going to go about doing that and what weird way of defining what we mean by sine, cosine, and tangent is going to allow us to do something like this. It's quite clever what we do to kind of solve this problem. But that's going to be really the first chapter or two is going to be really finishing, like having a nice big robust general definition for these trig functions that allow us to really deal with any size angle. Okay? So we'll stop here. Thank you guys. So there's